Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Unarmored Talk podcast, where we will have real life conversations that helps you develop an accurate way of thinking. And the way we're going to do this is by gaining a better understanding of how feelings, emotions, and thoughts can influence the outcome of a personal or professional challenge. I'm your host, Mario P. Fields, and today's guest is Dr. Larry Parker Jr., Lieutenant Colonel, retired United States Marine Corps. He's also an entrepreneur, business owner, keynote speaker, and he's a global inspirational speaker. Larry, I know I missed some other titles, man, but welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Hey, Mario, I appreciate that. And I'm doing well. I'm blessed and enjoying this retired life. So not slowed down, but enjoying this retired life. It's all good.
Yeah, I like the no shave shit.
Hey, I'm trying to take note, that's all.
No. Well, hey, again, welcome to the show, man. Tell them, if you can, tell the viewers and listeners a little bit about yourself.
Well, hey, everybody likes to say, "Oh, I'm a country boy." Nobody ever says they're a city boy. I'm a country boy, Temple, Texas,
right?
And really just grew up being a Dallas Cowboy fan. So nobody, throw anything at me. And really just came up enjoying basketball, sports, stuff like that. And then, military brat, so Army.
Oh, wow.
Son of a Army first sergeant. And so I've spent my time moving around PCS and before I even joined the military.
So you're just going to want to go against dad, right? You were like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to Marine to become an officer.
I say that was my last rebellious act, because he was all about West Point and everything else. He's like, why don't you want to do this? And if you recall, around the time, my age, David Robinson had just came out.
Right.
So if there was any service that was doing something in basketball, that was the Naval Academy. And so that's what my eyes set on there, and, found myself going there. And, I know we'll talk about it, but, and actually the way I found the Marine Corps, it was tied to the Naval Academy because it was somebody that worked with me there. Went to the Marine Corps and, education, since it was such a challenge for me at the beginning.
Right.
That's what came a part of my life and led me to this point where I'm a doctor now. So It was not in the original plans,
right? But
it evolved that way.
Well, let's talk about that. You mentioned the Naval Academy. Let's jump right into the topic. I mean, here you are, right? Dad's first sergeant in the Army. Unsuccessful, right? I believe honorable service, and then his son, right? How tall are you, Larry Parker? 6'1", 6'2"?
Hey, 6'7".
6'8". So so then you make this decision, right? You make the decision that you want to apply and attempt to get appointed, right, a seat in the United States Naval Academy, and you do. You get in, you're there, right?
Right.
And then you fail. Yeah. You fell out of the academy. Can you talk to us about that?
Well, that a lot of people can't point to a particular time in their life where they know they was one of the first times they failed. I believe that was one of them times where because I was that kid, coming up in classes, I was that kid. I probably ruined more children's books than anything else because I was always pretending I was in school doing stuff like that. And so I was a good student coming up. I was a good student growing up and never ran into any challenges, AP classes, then those things. And when I was appointed to the Naval Academy, and there was also tied with sports.
Yeah.
It was the first time that I had a lot of the other things that usually kept me in bounds away. I'm like I said, first plane trip was to the Naval Academy. I flew out there and I didn't buckle down. So when I hit that buzzsaw, that first time of being responsible and having to sit down, I didn't handle it well. And so that's really what it came to. There was more, and I can give you a little bit more of how, because it was over 2 years that I failed and they asked me to go somewhere else.
So this wasn't an overnight process. This is a 24-month. At what point during this 24-month journey that you realize, oh, this is not going the way I believe it should go? And then what emotions did you experience when you got to that realization?
Well, the interesting thing is, now those that know about the Naval Academy, plebe life, that your first year when you're a plebe, what they're calling you, is interesting in itself. So I'm doing all those things that go with plebe life, and I'm also an athlete. Also can't swim a lick. So what's interesting is, I was always good about following orders, and so I remember getting there, and that was part of my process. And it's important that I bring that up. There's just that when they needed a volunteer to step off the high dive, just step up, because everybody was freezing up. I stepped off, but I couldn't swim. So I'm sitting there waiting for, I'm watching the bubbles come up, and somebody reached in and pulled me out. And I'm like, okay, well, I can follow orders, but, can I do the academic piece? Mm. And I will tell you, it was probably midway through my first year when we are traveling with the basketball team, and we're doing exams in hotel conference rooms.
Right.
And my first grades are coming in, and I know I'm struggling. I can't pinpoint it. I'm putting in time, but I'm not getting the results. And I wasn't being effective when I put it. I'd go to study hall, but I wasn't being effective.
Right.
So about midway.
Wow. So what emotions now, once you realize, hey, my efforts are not getting me my return on investment that I believe I should get.
The crazy thing is that, successful athlete, I knew, okay, you run harder, you do this, you do that, all the things that we knew, I study harder. I did all the tricks in high school coming up, but they weren't getting it there. And so when we say emotions, it was almost a sense of defeat. And then there was a number of things that were going on as well, because it started to affect me on the basketball court, and I didn't make the first travel team. So I told you about mid-year. Right. So I was sent home for the holiday, and the only way I found out, and this is something there, that my mother had cancer, had breast cancer, was I went home, and I think she was expecting me. She knew I was struggling, and she wasn't going to tell me.
Right.
And they made a decision not to say anything, because we don't want you to mess up at school and thinking in school. And so I walk in, and it's just enough, because then I get a phone call because one of the guys got hurt.
Yeah.
And they're bringing me back out. So I get home just enough. I'm already feeling defeated. I find out this, and now it's time to go back on the road. And so I'm figuring I got to do something. And that's the thing. I'm feeling defeated. What can I do to recover this thing? Because I've always been looked at as the one that can make it happen.
And that's interesting how you talk about your emotion of feeling defeated. And if we may, and then I like how you highlighted how you started to think, through how do I get through this feeling, right? This emotion of being defeated. If you can, for our viewers and listeners, what do you mean by feeling defeated? In other words, you felt like you were no good. Let's dig into, you felt defeated, but what did that do to you?
Well, I tell you, I was the eternal optimist. If you met me coming up through high school, I was the guy, and a lot of people will probably wonder about it, because they're like, I've never seen you smile that much. But I could always work things out, because good at sports, worked hard academically.
Right.
It just worked. But the first time of, like I said, experiencing this defeated feeling, it was an emotion I had to work through, because I'd never, for me, I had never seen it. And then some people that I was around had never pressed to try to do some of these things above and beyond, because I was one of the first ones to go off to college.
Right.
So I didn't feel like I had someone to turn back to. And I will tell you, and I share this because, and I still want to find this Marine's name, because it's like I was lucky. And I wasn't thinking about the Marine Corps, but my company officer and the assistant company officer at the time happened to be Marines. Okay. But then when I needed tutoring, I finally had to get to the point I needed help. And that's the thing. When I was defeated, I was never that kid that when the teacher said, hey, submit your draft. And I still never accepted that. A draft was almost like getting a freebie. You let them see it early, you almost guaranteed you're going to get a good grade because if you make the adjustments, but I couldn't, my ego wouldn't let me do that. So I recognized I needed to get past my ego. When I was defeated and there's nobody else to help, I had to get past my ego and look for help. And I asked for tutoring. And so Dr. Jane Good, and I always give her props. She was one of those that worked with students that were struggling.
Right.
So she put me in touch with a tutor, and I still say it was a young black officer that came in, second lieutenant, that came in, and he was sharpest uniform that I had seen. That's the first time I had seen a Marine. And he started working with me. And that was the time that I said, okay, I can possibly see a way out of this. And it's just, hey, I'm still gonna have to work harder than I ever had before,
right,
but I got to get past my ego.
Right. And you know, that's interesting how your emotion, you did not make an emotional decision. You know, when you started feeling defeated, and what you described, you could have made an emotional decision and said, all right, I'm done, I'm worthless or whatever. But it's interesting how you went into the thought process. You put effort to going, okay, I've never experienced this. Don't really have too many people I can probably ask for advice. Let me think through this. And the results of that was, I need some help. Let's start off with some tutoring.
Well, you know, and I will tell you that I got there, but I did have a little segue into, now when I'm talking about humble, I was doing some begging because what I saw was I had never seen these Fs. I'm like, what are these?
wait a minute, this is not F for fun.
I remember going into my professors, and I'll tell you like this: 3 points, 1 point, and another 1 point. Those were the degree at which I failed those classes. It was that close.
Wow.
And I remember going and saying, and I'm at this point, I'm begging. I'm going to see each one specifically and saying, I'll never survive failing these classes. Can you see it your way to get 1 point? I mean, those words that I had never, and I remember chemistry professor, Navy SEAL, had the record for, and I'll have to remember his name, staying underwater. And he just stood out to me from that because, of course, you know, when you're young and impressionable, that's the one thing you're like, not that he's a Navy SEAL and all these other things. It was just an chemistry professor, but
right.
He has the record for staying up underwater the longest. But I remember begging him, and that was a defining moment because for me, I have to beg another person for how my life was going to turn out. And I'll tell you, I've told this story several times over and over again. I've told it to my sons, to beg a person and know that he has my life in his hands. Now, the interesting thing is he said, nope, you're gonna have to earn this. And I was like, and I knew when I went away for that Christmas break or during that period of time, I said, you just gave, and see, I was still putting it on him. You just gave me the death toll. And he was actually going to be the teacher that I had to take it over again.
Right.
And just to, you know, get to that point, he was one that I was still struggling when I took it again because I had taken it this summer. But it was that work ethic. He looked at it and he says, I see the work you're putting in. So I couldn't get tutoring in that class, but when I had to take it again, I took it with that same professor that I just knew I was hot. I just knew he was sending me home. But when it came down to it this time, he was like, yep, you put in the work. I see, you know, you didn't get the highest grade on this and all this other stuff. But now then, when you talk about defeated, now it's starting to turn around.
You know, and it's amazing how the professor too, I'm pretty sure that was an emotional transaction for him. And it's pretty amazing how the professor was able to be aware of his own emotions and make a thoughtful decision to tell you no. Yeah. I mean, I believe, right? I believe that was difficult for him, but you know, now for you, so here you are now, you realize that, all right, I'm in the United States Naval Academy. I have a lot of F's on my my report card, right? Mm-hmm. This is not going good. I still want to become an officer, but I don't think I'm going to make it through the academy. So at what point did you go, you know what, I'm going to stop this midshipman thing, but I'm going to pursue a commission, in the Marine Corps. What talk to us about that pivotal point?
Well, I wish it was that easy. I will say what happened was I wanted to be an officer more than I wanted to play ball or do anything else. And there's a culture at the academies, you play sports and all this other thing. Everybody's required to play sports. You're a varsity athlete. That's one thing. I made it through the first year. And at the end of plebe year, we have this big graduation or ceremony. You climb Herndon. For those that are familiar with Naval Academy, you climb on the monument, and I actually was the one who got it for our class. And so things are going up, starting to tip up. There's no more failures. I'm making it through first year, and I get Herndon for our class. I mean, for a while, you go on Wikipedia, I'm in there because one of those who got it for our year, the class of '93. And I make a decision to leave sports because I'm that committed. I want to be a Marine officer, and again, even the coach is like, what are you doing?
Right.
But then that changes your life there. If you were recruit athlete, you're doing some other things that changes your life. And especially step away from your sport.
Right.
So the second year, I'm just totally focused. I'm doing intramurals, I'm doing this, but I had to take a lighter load. So that was the one solution that, they came up for me, take a lighter load. Well, what that does is that makes a decision to go longer, and the Navy needs to determine if they're going to make that investment in you.
Right.
And so my grades have improved, my military performance improved, but I'm still needing to be extended. I'm still an exception. So I will tell you, at the end of the second year, I'm thinking I'm still okay. The travesty, I took summer school, made up some of those classes, made A's where I F'd, I made A's. And I wasn't expecting it. I went into an academic board, AX board, as they used to call it. And it was the first time I truly seen the admiral. I seen him move around and all this other stuff, but it was the first time, us being military, I saw these 06s and people that I'd seen before, but they're all sitting around the table. And I sat down at the end of the table, and for the first time I heard the words, it's good effort that you put in, but you need to pursue your education. You will need to pursue your education elsewhere. And I'm going to tell you, for 18, 19-year-old young man, well, I'll say at that point, 20-year-old man, to hear that. And you have to think about how mature were we at that point. And just if we were in the Marine Corps and we had just had a general officer sitting at the table, all the 06, and I'm sitting there with my hands at attention, and he's just telling me, you're going to need to pursue your education elsewhere. I walked out in shock, and I tell you, see, that's when that dog comes out. You're not going to tell me. I learned from that year before, and I never wanted somebody to put my life in somebody else's hands. And it just happened. I thought I was doing right, and you still told me to go home. At that point, I put it in my mind, you can't tell me no. And I remember Dr. Good talked to me once, and I was wondering why it was so hard. I even dropped a tear. I was like, why is it always I'm fighting uphill? And she just says, hey, for some people it's like that, and you're going to fight that way until you get to your blessing. And I'm telling you, that's when it happened. That's what happened. And ultimately it was, I don't like being told no. I see somebody else, if you put your pants on just like I put on my pants, unless you can figure out some new way to do it. If I want it and I'm willing to put in the work, I have this feeling that you can't tell me no. If there's not any other restriction, but I'm willing to do the work. And that's what got me. So I went on to another university, and I told them, they were trying to, hey, you want to go to this school? You want to go to that school, Morehouse? You want to go? What's the first school I can get into? I got business to take care of.
And you made the decision. You could have made a decision to not pursue a higher level of education after that. I mean, I believe that was devastating from listening to you. And what I mean by devastating is, you have probably multiple emotions on that I can't imagine because I wasn't there. But you made the decision through thinking that no, I'm not going to just lay down in the pasture, and that's a cliche. But what I'm going to do is I'm still going to achieve the outcome, right? My goal of becoming an officer in the United States Marine Corps through education. And here it is, years later, you said 1993, so we'll put you at 34 years old right now, Larry.
Yep.
But here it is years later that the average person probably wouldn't even think that that's what happened. Those amazing situations where lots of emotions are running through, but your thought process is what got you here today, where now you're a doctor, business owner, successful officer in the Marine Corps, retired. And I tell you, that is amazing. The power of thinking. Is there any other things you want to leave our listeners and viewers as you reflect on that journey of failing out of the Naval Academy and going on to do bigger and better things, if you will?
If I could leave with anything, I would say you set your eyes on that prize, but then you do not give up that fight. If you know this is of your heart of hearts, this is your goal and something that you're trying to pursue, I'll put it to you like this. My first officer that I took my account over for, in the military was one of my classmates, or he would have been one of my classmates there. Just a shift of a couple of years. He's a first lieutenant. And, for those that are watching and don't know about the military rank structure, I was a second lieutenant coming in. So they didn't get that much further ahead. And I'll just put this analogy. It's like someone running track. They got out the blocks earlier, but I kept running. And I kept running into my classmates throughout the years. And I still refer to my classmates. You do 2 years at some institution, they'll consider you an alumni because they'll keep asking for your check. They'll send up. But if I can just tell you, you set your sights on your goal. There's going to be some bumps and bruises, and it's not going to always go the way you want it to go, but you keep that fight. And like I said, I look at it as running a race or running track. And those that know about setting a limit or setting one that you're going to reel in, or setting a goal that you're going to reel in. And that's to me, that's how you overcome some of those adversities, those setbacks.
Yeah. Thanks so much. And how can people find Dr. Larry Parker Jr.? How can people find you?
Well, you can find me by my name, and I always include Junior because Senior was just talking to me this morning about this. So Dr. Larry D. Parker Jr. On LinkedIn. But what I will tell you, on my website and on Instagram, it's Dr. Larry D. Parker Jr. Inspires. And so Instagram, Facebook, and the actual website, all of them have the same, URL or title, and you can find me there.
And what's that website address, my friend?
Again, it's you write it all out. It's Dr. Larry D. Parker Jr. Inspires.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it. You can put them in your favorite search engine and you will find Dr. Larry D. Parker Jr., not senior, but junior. And so I recommend everybody follow him. He's a good man, inspirational leader. And he removed his armor to come on this podcast and share with you all things that hopefully helps you develop an accurate way of thinking and being aware of your emotions, feelings, so you can make a thoughtful decision. If you want to watch this episode, you go on to Mario Space P Space Fields YouTube. You can subscribe to us and watch this episode live, if you will. And then if you want to download and listen, go on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. We always ask that you leave a review and a rating. Even if you don't think the episode was great, still leave a review and a rating so we can get better. Until next time, I'll see y'all later.